made it. We made it.
Could I get your contact to get a copy of that video?
Yeah.
You know, we know that cities change over time. The community that, you know, I'm very familiar with in South Minneapolis, you know, is now a very residential community. It has, you'll hear today from, there's a child care center that is now very close to a number of industrial sites. And so what maybe made sense in terms of the planning 100 years ago no longer makes sense. And so our city's zoning has now been updated to reflect that. But right now, all of these sites are still grandfathered in, and so the city does not really have tools to be able to phase out industrial sites that we know are no longer compatible with the neighborhoods around them. So that's what the bill does, and I would now like to turn it over to my testifiers to share a little bit more.
I'm here to urge you to support this bill because it will give council members like me the ability to represent my community and have the tools necessary as a local government to enact an ordinance and prove that this is for the public good and essentially correct the mistakes of the past so we can build a city where we are building for a community that can have some of that land and health and justice back to them after hundreds of years of compounded pollution and disinvestment.
We know that there are a lot of contributing factors that push heavy particulate matter into the air, and what that means is higher lead levels in the blood of kids. It means respiratory issues and as well as other issues across the neighborhood. And so if we are able to sort of use this tool, right, if there's a precedent for using this tool when it comes to more moralistic governance, you know, adult bookstores and that kind of thing, then I would think that we should have an ability to leverage this tool when it comes to real impacts and harms happening in people's bodies because of the environments that they're in. So thank you.
And again, if you can help us restore this tool, one of the things that's been so frustrating for me, both as a former and when I was in the legislature and then since then, is that the city had for a number of years said, well, we can't do anything about changing the zoning here because the state law forbids us from doing it from these old industries. And as was explained earlier by the testifiers, that can change, and it can change with your vote today. So I please request you to help us put that tool back into force, and be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This bill would give cities a tool that they can use to protect public health through amortization. Amortization is a method of terminating a non-conforming use by giving it a specific end date. So in other words, it's a way of actually enforcing the zoning code. Currently, when a city decides that a use is no longer appropriate, the city essentially has to let it stay forever. This gives facilities zero incentive to leave. Even when the facility is sold, it can be sold multiple times and change ownership. The exact industries to be amortized would be determined at the local level and with constitutional protections in place to protect property owners.
And that fight that Northside had with Northern Metals was over 20, 40 years before I got there, but I spent 12 years of my own life fighting that facility. That facility had multiple fires. There was a fire hazard right on the Mississippi corridor. Northside has no access to the river. Our river is over-polluted by multiple different factories. Northern Metals was just one, so I ended up learning about all these other ones. Northern Metals caught fire multiple times. There was also a point where there was a consent decree that they were supposed to move in 2019 because they had been found to be violating their permit multiple times.
So pollution has real impacts on our health. And we have some unacceptable health disparities in the state of Minnesota. BIPOC communities experience poorer health compared with their white counterparts, including a shorter lifespan, higher incidence of heart disease, cancer, asthma, and diabetes, as well as higher rates of infant and maternal mortality. Black and American Indian infants are twice as likely to die before their first birthday as white infants. This bill gives cities an additional tool to address pollution sources in communities that can really make a difference in their health. Thank you.
After 31 years of non-compliance by Smith Foundry and 31 years of either an inability or unwillingness of the Minnesota pollution control agency. It's time for the state to let the city step in. We are not against businesses. We are for businesses that operate within the law. We want the same kind of provisions that I have as a homeowner. If I don't keep my house up and it endangers my neighbors, the city can step in and demand that I make compliance or shut my house down. And I know that's happened. It happened to a neighbor across the street from me. I just want to end by asking everybody who is here in support of this bill to stand up.
Excuse me, we know everyone is here. I appreciate that, and your testimony is concluded.
Thank you very much.
My 2-year-old son Eli goes to daycare across the street from Smith Foundry in the East Phillips neighborhood of Minneapolis. Like many of the children who live, play, or learn in East Phillips, Eli has significant respiratory issues. Every common cold goes to his lungs. He's on multiple inhalers and medications every day and sees a pulmonologist. Moreover, despite repeatedly violating the Clean Air Act, Smith is allowed to continue to operate in the urban neighborhood of East Phillips across from a daycare, as it is grandfathered in.
A factory like Smith Foundry does not belong in a densely populated area, let alone across the street from a child care center. Our state law needs to reflect this and empower communities to phase out these facilities that no longer conform to current zoning laws, especially when it is clear that their presence is making people sick.
Now is the time for corrective action, and this bill would give cities the opportunity to practice the application of just one of many necessary corrective actions. As I near the end of my time allotted to speak, I leave you with one question. In the future, when you are asked how your time served in your position was beneficial to the greater good, what will be your answer?
Disease can cause many health problems, including breathing problems. At a young age of 3, I had my first asthma attack, an asthma attack that ended in an emergency room every year after that until I turned 11. Growing up with asthma and the feeling of having limited breathing is the worst thing in the world. My opinion is that life is more valuable than money. I don't want the planet and people to die because of pollution. Some may not think this is a big deal, but to people like me, it matters a lot and has a big impact on my life. Think of the future and how you would want to be able to live your life. Thank you.
I just want to thank you for your testimony. I love having students in front of the committee, and I will say I share the same chronic illness, so I totally hear you and feel you. So thank you so much for being with us. Next, we will have Danielle Teagan, and Rob Hendrickson will be on deck.
It's not about being against business or against profit, or it's for healthy communities. And so we're talking about a phase out, we're talking about a tool that allows mothers and parents to continue to go back to work and to not have to keep taking off of work, to keep fighting and organizing.
About 5 minutes into my journey, I approached this cloud of what appeared to be steam flowing out of a vent and collecting into the valley of the trail. As I plunged into this cloud, I took my first deep breath and quickly realized that I couldn't breathe. And I just held my breath for the rest of the way. And emerging, I just thought, that doesn't really, what's that doing here,
And so I think it's important to recognize that this does not automatically remove businesses. This just gives us a tool to be able to have a say in what is in our community and what doesn't stay.
And so, much like the tools that we're trying to give back to the city, we are looking at the tools that the state also provides for our workers. And so we will be working close with our neighbors, because this is a working class neighborhood. It will always be a working class neighborhood. And I hope you support it, and we will also be supporting our workers along the way. Thank you.
Let me know when you're ready. All right, y'all can do y'all thing.